Alright, so before we finish this game, we still have the director's commentary, which is basically just a fancy term for behind-the-scenes videos. Okay, so number one, don't worry, we're not going to watch all of them, we're just going to watch the ones that I feel like have interesting information in it. Okay.
Honestly, it's weird that they call it director's commentary, because commentary implies that they're saying this while
they are
game is going.
They kind of are, Jova. It's just that you don't really see much of the playthrough they're doing while they're commentating. That's the weird part. It's weird.
It was really great to see.
I wonder if the idea is that since this is technically, you know, a game instead of a movie.
There you go, Shira. These are the two you have to blame.
I'm guessing that because this is a game instead of a movie, their way of commentary is playing the games themselves and then commentating over it.
Thank you.
I guess because you can't always gauge to when the player would do a certain thing.
I guess.
It's really making a game for the players because it's that's what's important.
You see, guys, this game was made for us, the players.
So welcome to the
You know, I wonder, Pedro, how big a fallout do you think these guys suffered? Going from being lauded with this game to being, well, the laughing stock with the sequel. And apparently, according to what you told me about Tell Me Why, they pretty much got the boot from their own company.
Well, that I don't know. I know that they haven't worked on a game since. If not, maybe they're just busy on something else. Maybe they just left the company. I don't know what's happened to them since Life is Strange 2.
Regardless, though, Life is Strange 2 does not seem to have been a good mark on their careers.
No.
Yeah, you know, I feel bad for people who want to. I feel bad for those who specifically want to. I know. I'll try games made by the French. Could you imagine if those games were literally just this and any David Cage game? They think the French are a bunch of hacks.
Dibs,
Okay.
tell me why.
To give Life is Strange some credit, you can arguably maybe really squint and see a good story out of this. With David Cage, though, oh god, I'd say the closest you get to having a legit good game is Heavy Rain. Granted, you can maybe enjoy Indigo Prophecy for just how bad it is. But
I did a playthrough of it.
Yeah, and then there's Detroit Become Human. Oh boy. Which ironically, Detroit Become Human shares a lot of problems with Life is Strange 2, which, yeah, no. Life is Strange 2 is definitely David Cage tier. Oh, don't get me wrong, Life is Strange ain't exactly a picnic either. And it does share a lot of problems with some of David Cage's more infamous work, like Beyond Two Souls. So
hold on. I want to mention this because I know Teo would want me to mention this. They just said that the rewind mechanic is heavily inspired by the memory remixes sections from Remember Me. I'm not entirely
that these guys did.
I'm not. Well, they didn't direct that game. They worked on it, but not as creative leads.
I'm talking about Don't Nod as a whole, not
sure,
just these two.
Sure. But they did say just now that they worked on that game, but I don't think they were the creative leads on that one. That was someone else. But yeah, basically, I'm not entirely confident how much Teo really buys that. Probably, I'm thinking of having him maybe record a little post bit where he mentions his thoughts on the matter. Maybe just why not? We'll see how things go.
We can see the Blackwell Academy on the top right.
When you say he doesn't buy, it doesn't mean he's like, you know.
No, I don't know if he does. I don't know if he does, Joe. I'm just, you know, I'm making a hunch right now. I'm making a hunch right now. Who knows? Maybe he does buy into that. Who knows? I don't know.
So the reason that they incorporated the menu using assets in the game is that they wanted to feel very connected.
Yeah. Well, remember, like every time you start a new episode, the title screen changes, specifically the climate and the daytime. So.
This reminds me of how with the crossover between Ace Attorney and Layton, how the main menu can change based off of where you are in the game.
Oh, there you go.
Did this game get a French dub?
Of course it did. He even got a Japanese dub.
Yeah. Well, because that's the thing, yeah, sometimes languages that you think would be in the game aren't.
No, but this game was done pretty much every. I think there's even a Brazilian Portuguese dub. I think, but I'll have to look into it. Maybe yes, maybe no.
I suppose one thing we can give these guys credit on is, I guess, points for the consistency between the main menu and the state of the game. That's a nice extra touch, I guess.
Oh, sure. I think he wanted people playing it to feel like they're in Oregon. Again, I've never been to Oregon, so I wouldn't know if they really capture the spirit of the place.
Well, judging from this game, I won't want to live there.
Yeah, there you go. Inspired by Twin Peaks and X-Files. Well, considering Chloe's truck, God,
Yes, her pickup truck.
Yeah, considering her pickup truck literally says Twin Peaks, like her car thingy on the front says literally Twin Peaks. They even have that close up when Chloe first shows up. Yeah, trust me, directors, I noticed. You shoved that Twin Peaks reference right in my face, so don't worry, I noticed.
Also, with X-Files, which era specifically?
Probably the original. That's the iconic one.
Yeah, because I mean, there's the revivals. Because from what I've heard about the revivals, I've heard basically anything not done by the creator was fine.
All right, so I actually want you guys to talk about. Guess what, Shira? When we get to the number 7 video called "Social Issues," we're actually going to talk about their comments on the whole social issues thing that they comment on. Since you've made very clear during our playthrough that these guys should not be tackling these things. Well, they actually have something to say about that. But not yet, though. For now, we're doing the matter of choice thing, if I noticed correctly. What was the one that I picked now, Dibs? I wasn't paying attention. Joba, did you see which one I picked? Right now?
The one you picked, I believe, was a matter of choice.
Yeah, matter of choice. So this is them talking about the choice. And I think they're about to address that contradiction you noticed, Jova, actually, if I remember correctly.
Which one?
The one where she wakes up in, she rewinds herself in here, even though it contradicts how things work. There you go. Check this out.
So we really tried on this scene to show the deja vu feeling. So the editing and the shots were there to give this weird feeling to the player that, okay, I'm living that again and again, looking at the different moments that the player saw the first time in this scene.
So yeah, for the editing in this sequence, we wanted to keep the same elements, but not necessarily the same shot. You can see that first 3 shots are the same, I think, and after we begin to change a little the point of view, so you understand that there are the same events going on, but just seeing from a different point of view. And
I think,
yeah, here you go.
Perfectly honest, we don't have a good explanation for why she's going back to the art class, because we needed it.
I've got one, but I will never tell you.
I don't think it's a mistake, because we also needed to explain to the player and learn how things are working.
So your explanation is fuck you.
So
Well, okay. To be fair, not so much fuck you. It's more so that they needed it for the sake of the game, basically.
we are using this.
I can get sometimes doing stuff for the necessity of the plot. That said, given how they later contradict other rules involved with the time travel, I'm sorry, I can't. Oh, okay, I can get that that's probably really the reason for it, but I still scuff at it because they ended up breaking rules anyway later in the plot as well. Like, if this were like, the one place where that happened, I could have excused it, but as Pedro pointed out, there are plenty of other times when the powers just work a certain way for the plot. Like, again, technically speaking, like Pedro mentioned, there's never any limit to how far Max can go back. So, like, technically, she shouldn't even need a photograph. Like, maybe if she focused long enough, she could technically go back about that photograph. Now, granted, maybe the powers would overwhelm her to that point, but we never really dived that deep into how her powers worked.
No, the time travel is literally a plot device. It's just there to facilitate the story elements that the directors want. Which again wouldn't necessarily be a problem if they at the very least kept it consistent.
Here's the thing. Suspension of disbelief normally asks that you can excuse one major out-of-this-world detail. Now, granted, there are some cases like the MCU where obviously there are several out of this world details. Fair enough, but no, for this one, the idea is like, well, the suspension of disbelief is that this girl can time travel.
Yeah.
Okay, fair and fine. But when you add on way too much to that suspension of disbelief, well, needless to say, like a rubber band, it eventually gets snapped.
Let me put it this way: when it's not about elements being unbelievable. It's about being consistent, because people will buy anything in your story as long as it's presented with consistency. If you start being inconsistent left and right, your story loses tension because, well, if the rules don't matter because they're constantly being broken, then the audience has no reason to fear for anything because there's no stakes. Because if the rules are inconsistent, let's say for example, in a movie where everybody is mortal except one person, and there's never an explanation for why that person is immortal. Like okay, so basically what you're telling me is that the rules don't matter then, because the creators would just break that rule according to whatever they need. There you go, Shiro. Here's the social issues bit. I knew you would want to comment on this, so I decided to pick this one too. So let's see their topic about. Yeah, there you go. There you go. And the first one is the one that Dwebs in particular really takes an issue with. There you go.
All right.
Yeah, I mean,
nice.
It's like, yeah.
Family violence, and it's something you can have encounter as a player. I think we all know some people who got some difficulties, and you can have by yourself also. Here, the choice you're going to take will have consequences on the relation between Max and Chloe, but also on her father.
Is that it?
No, they're not done. This is just like a break.
Oh boy.
They're just explaining the scene.
Yeah. Now they're actually going to get into the meat of it right now.
For what?
Right now they're just showing a clip of the game. There you go.
They're gonna go into how they had a certain plan with David.
Yeah.
At the beginning, but then we are making
episode after episode, you can see that maybe he's very he's got his own reason to be like this.
What, the final one, and that's it?
Well, you see, Dwibs, not everything is black and white.
All right, hold on.
Just showing a perspective that not everything is black or white. So we did a lot of research to be sure that we were dealing with those themes in a good way. Too much gamification.
There you go, Shiro. They did a lot of research to make sure they were tackling these themes properly, apparently.
What research
Oh
did they
boy.
do?
I don't believe them.
Now, I'd love to see what they used for research.
So here is a Kate
And I'm
character,
sorry, like,
Yeah,
a lot-
like, drop the sources, guys.
not only that, but a lot of these issues for supposedly being deeply researched are kind of surface level with the amount of stuff they
Yeah.
actually deal with, compared to, again,
How we try to
Episode by episode, you literally had him slap her, but then he had to be, not a douche in the very last episode.
like I said, Dwibs, that was their plan to make, David, like, okay, it's pretty much like with Chloe. Have it be an ungodly, unlikable character, but later they change, so they're better. Again, the problem is, like, well, unlike with David, with Chloe, you'll find out that they absolutely expected you to like her.
we wanted really to talk about all the cyberbullying, the fact that it's quite difficult for a teenager nowadays to be connected as everyone is now. I think everyone has got a phone, is connected always.
We are using the text message a lot, and we are making fun with that. So we are really thinking about both sides of the social media.
On the other end, you've got this.
More like everything's not awesome.
It could be really difficult to live. I think a lot of players could recognize some.
Okay, I don't want to call these guys outright liars, but like Shirai, I really got a question.
Players who say that
How good was their actual research in this?
Hold on, here you go. They got a lot of letters from players that apparently this game really helped them overcome their feelings of depression and suicidal tendencies or some shit like that, blah, blah, blah. So apparently there are people who genuinely thought that these topics were handled fun, and people who actually went through it. Again, I'm not trying to judge those people. It's just that, I still I still press X to doubt. Go on, Shiri.
Let me put it like this.
Science and the
If
case
you-
study
if
is-
this
Guys,
game-
the subtitles are bad and their accents are thick. I cannot understand any of this. I'm gonna need you guys to hold off. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Don't worry, Shuri. I can just tell. They just
Because
said.
this is a part you wanted me to pay attention to specifically,
sorry.
and it's like I'm gonna need to.
Sorry.
Sorry.
No, don't worry, Shuri. They basically just said what I just said about the whole. Oh, we've had a lot of letters from people saying that thank you. This game made me go through my shit about depression and suicidal tendencies and all that shit. That's all they said, really.
Is really to
I guess they are right now talking about the
Alright,
bit with
alright.
Kate, though.
to show her that she knows her, that she's her friend, and to really take out of jumping.
But
It's not
yeah,
something
no.
that
Back to what you were
competitors
saying,
do,
Shuri. They're like,
but
well,
all this
you know what?
and
If this game was able to
even
help
in the
you,
limited one,
all the more
Kate
power
was
to
written
you.
as a- again,
And you know what? I
somehow
can
sort
believe
of
that
a-
this game was able to
she's-
speak to certain people on a
she's
level,
really
because
good. She's,
technically, yes,
for
some people do
abstinence,
act
whereas this
realistic in this game.
basically
Doesn't
pro
necessarily
life,
make for a good
ideas.
plot, but
Maybe some of the
yes,
players
this
would
was,
say that
again,
she's
arguably
boring
one of
character,
the
but way we
first
evolve,
games of
and
its
write
type
things
that
down, it's
really
really
was
so
this
that
down
even
to earth,
if you
minus
get
the whole
past
time
first
travel
appearance of
stuff, you know,
someone that's
with a teenager in this sort of school setting and whatnot. So,
you can
fair
find
enough.
really,
Again,
good things
though,
and interesting
there is a
things in
reason
it.
that the opinion of this game soured over time when more games were able to tackle this arguably much better. Now, I'm not going to say that it does
Oh,
not
here you
fulfill
go.
a certain niche.
Basically, Shiro, they even say what you assumed in the playthrough. They're saying that they didn't want to gamify, as they put it, this scene. And they even say that the reason they make it so that the time travel doesn't work here is because they wanted to make sure
It was really
that
hard to put balance to-
you know, like so apparently Shiro, the reason they have this contrived moment where she can't use her powers is exactly because of the reason you assume, probably because they didn't want to, quote unquote, as they put it, gamify this.
There is a lot of branching
You know,
Basically.
I can understand that, but would it have killed them to have
Alright.
given a good story explanation as to why her powers can't suddenly work? Like,
Well, we've already gone through
I
this.
can
I'll
literally think.
go
and
into.
they,
Oh, sorry, go on, Shiro.
I'll go into detail about my thoughts on this stuff after we're done with the part.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, honestly though, I could literally think of something on the fly. Like,
I did. I
Max's
literally.
energy was.
Yeah, I literally did that myself on during the playthrough. Remember, like that's the thing. It's so easy. So it really is a problem where it's like we can just pull something out of our asses to explain this, and it works just fine because it works perfectly with everything we've seen in the else in the game, and yet they apparently couldn't think of it.
Which I think really does bring me to one of the major issues with these guys' mentality with this game. It's a classic case of missing the forest for the trees. Sure, they did all this research, but it doesn't feel like they use it that much because those bouts don't factor into the story nearly as much as Chloe's drama here and there.
You know what's interesting?
like,
Sorry, go on.
They're on about how this will be grand, but they don't focus on the bits that matter, the details
Yeah.
that help keep the story together.
Oh, there you go. Here, now to talk about this bit here.
Choice. You really have to take your time and think about it before.
You have to think about it, making your choice. Blah, blah, blah.
We've seen all kind of reactions.
There you go. You see all kinds of reactions. We immediately say, no, I can't do it. Or other players who might immediately accept what's going on in these scenes, blah, 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 blah.
Of course, it's Chloe. I'm accepting, and a lot of others were hesitating for 5-10 minutes or so. And I think that we've been. I like
Here's my problem with this. It doesn't
Oh,
matter
even
what
says
you
here.
do, Mac.
We've even been a bit mean to the player because we've given them a choice, and maybe they don't want to make any choices on this. But we still have to make a choice. I think it was stronger. There you go. The reason
You
you're
have to stop playing the game because
no, but according to
Yeah.
them, Shiroi, they want to put it so that you have to make that choice because that to them is what makes it impactful. I guess that's
So,
what.
counterpoint.
but it doesn't matter because they reverse it. That's what I'm
Exactly.
getting at.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They don't have to make that choice.
Yeah, like, I'm sorry,
It
guys.
doesn't
You
matter.
guys, you can't go on the song and dance of how it's a big, impactful choice when that choice means ultimately
Yeah.
nothing. Max is always going to go back in time and undo this timeline.
But hey, let's
Which is why I
end. Sorry.
Which is why I say it's a big missed opportunity that they didn't actually let us stay in that timeline.
But yeah, to end this on a more positive note, let's talk about the voices of Arcadia Bay, of course.
Oh, here we go.
attached to Chloe. So
Really get attached to Chloe, they say.
Oh yeah. We talked over it, Chua, but they literally just admitted right there. We knew that the story wouldn't work, would only work if people were really like Chloe. So there you go, straight from the horse's mouth, everybody. You're supposed to like Chloe. So anyone trying to argue for moral ambiguity, no, you're not necessarily supposed. Like, no, you are. The directors themselves just literally said it, word for word.
I'm sorry, writers. I'm sorry.
So we're finding.
That being said,
I'll be fair to the writers. As a character, I hated more than Chloe, but that's not exactly helping. Doesn't help much.
yeah. That being said, like they said, it was important for them to. Oh.
Use the word Hela. The players were waiting sometimes for it.
Oh yeah, basically they said that they intentionally subverted the whole "I hate Hella" thing with alternate timeline Chloe. So there you go. But yeah, let's talk about the voice actors, who of course tried their best to sell this thing to us, but of course it's useless.
They did it both at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give Ashley Birch credit. Much as I hate Chloe, she did a very good job.
Well, it's Ashley
bringing her character
Birch.
to life.
I mean, Ashley Birch is awesome. I'm still not entirely sold on Anna Taylor. Like I said in the playthrough, every time Max talks, it sounds like Anna Taylor is afraid to say her lines.
I really do get the feeling that she was directed that way because she sounds consistently like she's on the verge of crying.
Trust me, Jova. You think that she's on the verge of crying? Then wait till you see Sean, the protagonist of LIS 2, because Sean is literally constantly talking like this. Oh man, I really hope that I'm happy. I really hope that that Daniel is fine. Like, I'm not kidding you. The voice acting in that game is something. But we'll get to it.
It was really an extraordinary experience. I really feel like I'm.
You know, I joke, but how funny would it be if this was literally just a paycheck to these girls? Yeah, they're talking about how influential and great this game is going to be. Now, granted, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but there are literally some cases where, despite what actors are saying in the behind-the-scenes commentary, it's later revealed that, oh, no, this was just a paycheck to me.
I can also tell you, Jova, that just this year, there was a special reunion voice acting thing with some of the voice actors from this game, where they redid certain lines from the game live during a Discord call, where they were like so they're still interacting with the fan base to this day, like, so. But remember, Jova, the truth
It's a loyal one.
The truth of the matter, Jova, is that there's a shit ton of rabid fans that love the hell out of this game. So this game ain't going anywhere.
You know what? I can respect that. And you know what? If they really did enjoy their roles with this one, again, all the more power to them.
So I thought that was Sean Beat for a second.
No.
It did look like him, didn't it?
For Hannah, for Max.
But no. Okay, look. This game has loads of problems. The actors were not one.
No, the actors were not the problem. And yeah, like Dwebs noticed, Anna and Ashley recorded their lines together. And they also did the same thing in the farewell episode in Before the Storm. We'll get to that one.
We actually do that quite a bit with a lot of stuff. We started off doing that, had a bit of a slump, but nowadays that sort of thing seems to be coming back. Of course, then the pandemic had to ruin things.
Who the voice director was? Behind the voice actors doesn't say it.
No. Okay. Speaking of writers as well, since we're talking about the writers, according to the credits of the game, the overall script was written by Christian Devine, an actual American writer, and then it credits both of the directors, Michael Cogg and Raoul Barbet, as additional writing. So my guess is probably what happened was, Michael and Raoul wrote the overall base storyline, and then they gave it to Christian so that he could turn it into a script, but they themselves also made their own additions, basically.
That would make more sense, because from what I've heard, the script of Life is Strange 2 feels like a more extreme version of this game.
Oh, in that case, that's a thing, Jova. According to the credits of Life is Strange 2, they did the exact same setup. It's the same credits. Christian Devine as a scriptwriter, and Raoul and Michael as additional writing. So I'm not kidding you, Joe. You can practically copy paste the credits of both games into each other because they pretty much use the exact same creative team with the exact same roles. That's the thing. Like at first, when I first played Life is Strange 2, I was like, okay, maybe there was a change in staff, and that's why this game is even worse. No, it's the same creative team, same directors, same writers, same artists.
I wonder if this is the case where, because Life is Strange did so well, they thought, hey, these guys can do no wrong, so let them go wild with the sequel.
Yeah, that's my theory.
Yeah.
After the huge success of this game, it inflated their egos. They went on an ego trip where they thought they could do no wrong, and decided that now we can do the most amazingly ambitious sequel for this thing, and it's just, it fell flat.
And the sequel tanked.
That kind of thing's been happening a lot lately.
Hey, Dwibs, it's like Kingsman: The Golden Circle, isn't it?
Yeah. And also Wonder Woman 1984 and Thor: Love and Thunder.
And Last of Us Part 2.
What's going on?
Yeah, this has been happening a lot.
Although
really well the first time,
this has always been
more creative writing in the second.
This
turns out worse.
This has always been a thing, does I mean? Remember, that was always my theory of Final Fantasy VIII, where I still think Kitase got a bit too, over excited about the success of 7 to the point where he got a bit too over ambitious.
Possibly. I will say this in this regard, like, again, it really is a shame, kind of a shame, because for as much as I really do riff the hell out of this game, there is potential for growth. And part of me does wonder if maybe they would have been better just continuing off the story of these characters.
This bit with Victoria, that's the one that you're supposed to interpret as, her regretting what she did to Kate and all that stuff. Problem is, it's a blink and you'll miss it scene that only lasts a couple seconds, so it doesn't really have the impact that it should.
Especially given how that's supposed to be a sign that even Nathan apparently regrets his actions too, which I will give him credit, that's one of the better times they actually animate his face, but it goes back to my issue of how the faces are animated, or lack of animation from time to time.
Yeah. Alright, up until the end of this video, now it's just them thanking all the fans for being so passionate, all blah, 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 blah. So Shiro, go ahead and say say your piece.
Those characters and this story and those themes.
Sure. First, I want to specifically comment about, I want to mention something about what Pedro said earlier regarding, Kate's suicide. The thing is, I do believe that they did get a lot of letters, but the thing is, Pedro, even though a piece of media might help someone deal with an issue they're having, even to that person, the writing might not even be technically good.
Oh, sure.
Like, for example, Steven Universe is a show that absolutely did help a lot of people, and yet the things that did help people are very flawed, like acknowledged by them and other people who weren't dealing with such issues. But, there is a distinction there, but the writing should still be commented on. Everyone would agree with that.
Oh no, I understand that, Shiro. I was just trying to say that, it's just again, if this game helped you, cool. It's just that I don't see how can this be like something that really is positive when it comes to in that matter, because I just find it to be so disrespectful in the way it handles these things, So I just don't see it.
Yeah. But you can't really control. I understand that. I think at the end of the day, you just can't really control what does and does not help people with something.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of the point is that is arguably probably why a lot of people did acclaim this game back in the day, which, again, in addition to this kind of being a game that fit a certain niche that has way more content nowadays than it did back then, I don't want to say people were wrong for praising the game like that, but it does feel like a bit of a bout of artificial inflation with the quality to that regard.
Sure. All right, before we end this, while I was... sorry, I thought you were done, Sherry. Go on.
No, it was one more thing. I get you're trying to do the whole morally gray thing with David, And yeah, he did have his reasons for acting the way he did, but like, you don't hit your kids. Like, me and Dwibs have said this several times throughout this.
Oh,
It's
sure.
like, and also, you hit her once. That means you've either done it before, and if not, you are definitely doing it again unless someone, checks you on that shit.
Yeah.
Sorry. Dude needs to, deal with his problems, and he does get to a point where he looks like he is actually going to do that. Same can't be said for Chloe, but David's still a dick.
Again, my issue is my issue is how they use him again. Like here's the thing: they really ramp up his dickery more than it is across from most of the game. Like I said, you can even miss the whole him hitting the Chloe thing to the point where, again, it feels like they put that moment in just for a shake of shock value, or to make you feel sorry for not coming to Chloe's aid, rather than focusing on how bad David is, and again, to make him a red herring for the killer and all that. Okay, even before I knew what was actually going on, I always got the feeling they're literally checking off the boxes on this guy to make him look like the bad guy. So of course he's going to later have a redemption that shows that he actually did mean well. And I will say this, to their credit, they do kind of hint at that with, again, the fact that despite the fact that he's overly paranoid, most of his suspicions actually do end up being confirmed and right. He just has a terrible way of showing them. That does not excuse his behavior, but it really goes into a lot of the problem with how this story uses characters. It technically uses them in the way to get the story moving, but it uses them in the wrong way to make that story also nice and coherent. Look at Chloe and Max here. Those two, the game will say, work so great together and are such a great team. Well, I'm sorry, these two have terrible chemistry. Kim Possible and Shigo have better chemistry, and those two are flipping arch enemies who tried to kill each other on half a basis.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, basically. Okay, before we end this, Shiroi, while I was editing the final part, I did notice one thing that you didn't touch upon in your final thoughts, which is the wonderful use of slang that you yourself even commented on a couple times. So, do you want to make some final comment on the slang as an addendum to your final thoughts?
I'm fine with dated slang, to be honest. But just make sure you know how to use it.
Exactly.
Recognize it's... Because, they're not just random, they're not random words. They actually have meaning.
Yep.
Even if they sound stupid, they have meaning. Use them properly if you're going to use them, please.
Otherwise, you
That's
end up
literally all I ask for.
Otherwise, you might end up using some slang that you will really end up regretting.
Alright, everybody, that was Life is Strange 1. I hope you enjoyed this as much as we didn't. Okay, if we didn't, but we hope we
enjoyed it. What?
Yeah, and then, I hope you enjoyed us tearing into it. That's what I meant. All right, tune in next time for Before the Storm, the prequel. So see you then.
Yeah.
Ta-ta.